Good morning and welcome to Kennedy and Hope's Coffee Talk. I'm Kennedy alongside the always insightful Hope, and we're glad you're starting your day with us. Today is January 7th, 2026, and this is the first Coffee Talk of the year, which means we're setting the tone. This show is about thoughtful conversation, honest perspectives, and taking a moment to slow down and actually talk about what's shaping our world over a cup of coffee. Each episode, we bring you real dialogue on culture, media, creativity, and the moments that make us pause, question, and reflect. No rushing, no shouting, just meaningful conversation that respects your time and your intelligence. And so, whether you're listening on your morning commute at your desk or easing into the day, settle in, pour that coffee, take a breath, and let's talk hope. The music industry just witnessed something remarkable. Drake's complete social media blackout and studio isolation, reminiscent of how some of hip hop's most legendary albums were created. But what makes this particular moment so fascinating is how it's challenging everything we know about modern album releases.
You know what's really interesting about this whole Iceman situation? The way DJ Academics has become this unofficial herald for Drake's next moves.
Well, that's exactly what makes this so unique in hip hop history. We've never seen an influencer become such a trusted intermediary between an artist of Drake's caliber and their audience. Like when Academics tweeted, "The Iceman is coming," it sent ripples through the entire industry.
And the timing of all this feels particularly significant, especially with how the hip hop landscape has been shifting lately.
That's right. You know what's fascinating? This is Drake's ninth studio album, and instead of following the current trend of constant releases to stay relevant, he's actually stepping back. When Academics said, "Let my boy live in peace, no live streams, collabs, or whatever right now," it signaled something much bigger.
The way Drake's approaching this album really does seem to break all the rules of modern music promotion, doesn't it?
Well, let's look at the numbers. Drake's last album, Her Loss, moved over 400,000 units in its first week. And yet he's willing to completely disappear from the public eye to craft this new project that's huge in today's streaming focused industry.
Speaking of streaming, the landscape has changed so much since Drake's early days. Remember when Take Care dropped in 2011? The whole industry was different then.
Oh man, that's such a crucial point. Back then, artists could take their time between releases. Now, with streaming platforms demanding constant content, Drake's decision to go dark is almost revolutionary. It's like he's saying quality over quantity.
The isolation aspect really seems to be key here. What do you make of academics specifically mentioning the stove is hot and all these cooking metaphors?
You know, these cooking references remind me of how some of hip hop's most iconic albums were created. Think about it. When Kanye went to Wyoming for My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, or when Jay-Z locked himself away for The Blueprint. There's something almost mythical about an artist going into isolation.
That historical context really puts this whole situation in perspective, doesn't it?
Exactly. And here's what's wild. In an era where most artists feel pressured to maintain constant social media presence, Drake's choosing to follow that old school album creation process. When Academic says all he needed to do was to fall back, it's like acknowledging the shift back to a more traditional approach.
The contrast between this approach and the current state of the industry is fascinating. How do you think this might influence other artists?
Well, looking at industry trends, we've seen streaming numbers actually decrease when artists oversaturate the market. So Drake might be setting a new standard here, showing that sometimes less is more. And with his track record of over 75 billion streams globally, he's earned the right to experiment.
Um, that's a really good point about market saturation. Do you think the ICEMAN title might have something to do with this calculated approach?
Oh man, the symbolism in that title is fascinating. ICEMAN suggests something cold, calculated, precise, which is exactly what this rollout has been. It's like Drake is showing us that sometimes you need to freeze out the noise to create something truly significant.
The way this whole situation is unfolding really does feel like a statement about the current state of music.
And here's what's really interesting. When Academic says y'all and Avimons really miss Drake, it's proving this point about absence making the heart grow fonder. In a world of constant content, creating scarcity might actually be the smartest move,
That's such an interesting psychological aspect of this whole rollout.
right? And looking at the data, artists who take longer breaks between albums often see bigger first week numbers. It's like the anticipation becomes part of the art itself. When Academic says we're going to get what we really want from the boy, he's tapping into that built up desire.
The way fan engagement has evolved around this album is really something special to watch.
You know what's wild? Social media mentions of Iceman have increased by over 300% since Academics started dropping these hints. It's like he's created this perfect storm of anticipation without Drake having to say a word himself.
That organic buildup of excitement really does feel different from typical album promotion strategies.
And here's the thing, this approach might actually be changing how the industry thinks about album rollouts. Instead of the usual 3-month promotional blitz, we're seeing this slow burn of anticipation that's been building for months.
Looking ahead, what do you think this means for the future of album releases?
Well, based on everything we're seeing, Leo, I think we're witnessing a potential shift in how major artists approach their work. When Academic says whenever he's done chef and we gonna have a good time, he's essentially validating this new approach, one that prioritizes the art over the immediate gratification of constant releases.
That really does feel like a turning point for the industry.
And you know what? Whether Iceman drops tomorrow or 6 months from now, Drake's already shown that in 2024, sometimes the most powerful move an artist can make is choosing silence over noise. It's like he's rewriting the rules of engagement in real time. The NFL coaching landscape is experiencing its biggest shakeup in decades. John Harbaugh out in Baltimore, Mike Tomlin potentially leaving Pittsburgh, and Tom Brady helping choose the Raiders' next head coach. Let's break down this seismic shift that's about to reshape the league.
You know what's fascinating about the Harbaugh situation? The Ravens are calling it a firing, but sources are saying there is some real back and forth negotiation happening behind closed doors.
That's right. And what's particularly interesting is that Harbaugh seems completely at peace with leaving after 16 seasons. Sources close to the situation mentioned he felt somewhat underappreciated in recent years, despite maintaining a solid relationship with Lamar Jackson.
Speaking of relationships, the real tension apparently wasn't between Harbaugh and Jackson at all, but between Jackson and offensive coordinator Todd Monken. That's quite different from what most people assumed was happening.
And now we're looking at this domino effect across the league. Take the Steelers situation, Mike Tomlin potentially stepping away after 19 seasons. And get this, He's apparently more interested in TV work than taking another coaching position.
That would be quite the career shift. Though I heard networks have basically had standing offers waiting for him whenever he decides to leave coaching.
The Raiders situation might be even more intriguing. You've got Tom Brady as minority owner getting involved in the coaching search, but GM John Spytek is apparently going to be the key decision maker. And with that number one draft pick, they're really focused on finding someone who can develop their future quarterback.
Well, that explains why they're putting such emphasis on offensive minded candidates. They really can't afford to miss on this quarterback decision.
You know what's really catching my attention? The emergence of these younger coaches. Take Grant Udinsky in Jacksonville. He's turning 30 and might be getting head coaching interviews. That's pretty remarkable when you think about the traditional path to these positions.
And don't forget about Jared Johnson in Houston, his work with quarterbacks, especially how he handled Davis Mills during that 3-game stretch while CJ Stroud was out, has really turned heads.
The 49ers situation is particularly fascinating. They might lose defensive coordinator Robert Saleh to a head coaching job, but they're already grooming Clay Kubiak as their next potential star. Kyle Shanahan apparently sees him as a future head coach.
That's what makes this carousel so interesting. It's not just about filling immediate vacancies, it's about planning for the future too. Look at how many teams are trying to build these coaching pipelines.
And the defensive coordinator market is absolutely exploding. Brian Flores in Minnesota has multiple options, both for coordinator positions and potential head coaching jobs. The Vikings are trying to keep him, but he's got serious leverage with nearly 10 teams having DC openings.
That reminds me. What do you make of the Cowboys' approach? They rarely hire first time defensive coordinators, but they're looking at some interesting candidates after firing Matt Eberflus.
The Cowboys situation is particularly complex because their staff felt the defensive problems weren't entirely Eberflus's fault. They're looking at experienced candidates like Brian Flores and Raheem Morris, but they know they need roster reinforcements too.
So, what do you think about the Chiefs' situation with Matt Nagy? He's a free agent and could be looking at head coaching opportunities, including Tennessee.
That's where things get really interesting. If Nagy leaves, there's serious speculation about Cliff Kingsbury potentially returning to work with Patrick Mahomes. Their history together at Texas Tech could make that a natural fit.
The interconnectedness of all these moves is fascinating, like how Dan Quinn might bring Raheem Morris to Washington because of their Atlanta connection.
And look at what's happening in Miami. They're interviewing 8 GM candidates, and 3 of the first 6 are from the 49ers front office. That's not a coincidence given Mike McDaniel's connections there.
How do you think these teams are balancing their coaching searches with playoff preparation? That's got to be challenging.
It's incredibly complex. Take Buffalo's Joe Brady, for example. He's kept their offense in the top 5 without a dominant receiver, and now he's trying to prepare for the playoffs while potentially fielding head coaching interviews.
That's quite the juggling act, and some of these coaches might be interviewing with teams they're about to face in the playoffs.
The timing is definitely tricky. But what's really striking is how these moves could reshape the power structure in the NFL. Think about it. We might see both Harbaugh and Tomlin, 2 of the most successful coaches of their generation, in completely different roles next season.
And the ripple effects could last for years. These decisions about coaching staffs and front office personnel will impact draft choices, free agent signings, and team cultures for the next decade.
You're absolutely right. And what's particularly fascinating is how teams are approaching these searches differently. Some are sticking with traditional experienced candidates, while others are willing to take chances on younger, innovative coaches.
That really, speaks to how the league is evolving, doesn't it? The emphasis on offensive innovation and quarterback development has changed what teams look for in a head coach.
And with the playoffs starting this weekend, we might see even more surprising moves based on how teams perform. This could be just the beginning of a transformative period in NFL coaching. Uh,
Well, one thing's for certain, the next few weeks are going to be absolutely crucial for shaping the future of several franchises.
And that's what makes this particular coaching carousel so fascinating. It's not just about filling vacancies, it's about potentially reshaping how NFL teams approach leadership and development for years to come.